I will tell you a story about something terrible that happened on October. This story is true, so they say, and it made my hair stand on end just to hear it. It all happened many years ago in my town, which at that time was just a little town between the mountains of Catalonia, Spain. The town was little more than a small square with a church, a park, a prison, and a school, with all the houses clustered around. The town was very proud of their school since it had been voted the best school in the province. It was the morning of October 31, and a class of students were doing arts and crafts in their classrooms. Some were cutting skeletons out of sheets of paper, some were painting vampires' butts, and others were drawing pumpkins. The students were all aged between 8 and 9 years old. Their teacher was a beautiful young woman who had only been working at the school for 1 month. While the children were having fun preparing the Halloween decoration, the teacher turned the radio to listen to the weather forecast. She was planning to organize an outdoor Halloween party for the kids later that day and wanted to be sure that it wouldn't rain. Suddenly, the weather forecast was interrupted by a news bulletin. This is an important announcement. A convicted murderer has escaped from the local prison and is on the loose. He is described as armed and very dangerous. Please do not attempt to apprehend him, the police wailed. The teacher rushed across the room and switched off the radio. She did not want to alarm the children, but it was too late. The children had all heard the broadcast and were very frightened by the news. They knew that the prison was very near to the school. The teacher tried to reassure them and told them not to worry. A few minutes later, the school principal made an announcement over the intercom. Attention all the teachers, we have been informed that the police were dealing with a very serious situation that is occurring right now in the town. All the teachers were advised to lock the doors and windows of their classrooms until the police get this situation under control. I repeat, lock all the doors and windows until further instruction. That's all. The teacher told the class to stay calm. She took out her key and locked the classroom door. Then she went around and closed every window, making sure that they were secure and nobody could get in. One little girl raised her hand and asked if she could go to the bathroom. The teacher didn't want to let her go, but the girl insisted. The teacher finally relented and gave her permission to go to the toilet. After all, it was unlucky that the murderer would come to the school. He told the girl that when she came back, she would have to give a secret knock at the classroom door. Then they would know that it was her and they couldn't let her back in. The code was 3 taps and 2 scratches. The girl left to go to the bathroom and the teacher locked the door behind her. To take the children's mind off the scary situation, she started telling the story. After 20 minutes had passed and the girl still had not returned, the teacher began to get worried. What's taking her so long? She wondered out so loud. Suddenly, they could hear footsteps in the corridor. Everybody in the classroom froze, and then they heard the noise at the door. She's back, sighed the teacher in relief. She walked over, took out her key. What if it's not her? Asked one little boy who was shivering with fright. The teacher hesitated, her key inches from the lock. Again they heard the noise at the door. It must be her, said the teacher. She put the key into the door and unlocked it. Suddenly the classroom door burst open and the tall man was standing there. In his right hand he was holding a knife and his left hand he was holding the little girl's severed head. The escaped murderer came into the classroom, smiling from ear to ear. The children were trapped inside. All that could be heard in the corridors of the school were screams of terror and squeals of pain. The teacher managed to break a window and jump out. She barely escaped with her life and crawled to safety. The children, however, were not so lucky. When the police arrived, they found the murderer sitting in the middle of the classroom. The floor walls where ceiling were covered in blood. Little body parts lay scattered around him. He had chopped up every child in the class into tiny pieces. Today the teacher is in a psychiatric hospital. She never recovered from the incident and can't stop repeating over and over again, tap tap tap, scratch scratch, etc. The school was abandoned because parents refused to send their children there. There were many bad memories. The school was left just the way it was when the murders occurred. They say that if you visit the old school building and go into the classroom, you can still see the blood still dripping down the walls. If you're brave enough, you could even go to the bathroom, just tap 3 times and scratch 2 times on the door of the 3rd store, and then open it. You will see the headless body of the little girl sitting on the toilet. Hey guys, before you keep watching the video, if you want to send a personal true horror story of yours, please send it to me on my email and I will contact you for sure. And keep watching your video. You know, when October comes, I feel good and try a lot of things. It's my favorite month, and I like the weather of this month. It's not too hot and it's not too cold. A refreshing October breezes my feet. My friends and I used to love raking the leaves into a big pile and wrestling matches in them when we were kids. It was the end of October and almost all the leaves have fallen. My house was too big to rake all the leaves, so I usually ask my friends to help me. The house we lived in at that time was a corner house with a large square on the side wall, which opened into a short cul-de-sac with only 2 houses, one of which belonged to an old stoner couple who did not give a damn about anything, and across the street was a little old house that looked like a haunted house and whose owner never seemed to come outside. Then after a great deal of work, we went in, having become tired, to relax, eat our favorite snack and play video games for a nightly triple threat match in the cheats. You call it our wrestling match. We would pretend we were in the WWE. When we came back, it was almost completely dark, except for the one street light standing in the dead, lit up the side of our property, so he could see enough. It seemed as if there were plenty of few leaves on the heap just in front of this time. We tried to rest a little more, but the pile just spread out too much, so we had to resort to the rakes and piled up the pile again. Sam noticed a long, oddly shaped pile that we'd noticed before. When we began to rake up the leaves, it seemed as the heap was so formed that it was too difficult to move it. He shouted that there was something under the leaves. To help him brush off the leaves, whatever they were, whatever was underneath, and we all cried out as when we realized that there was a grown man hiding there, hiding under the pile. We stepped back and looked at each other, then back at him. We did not know whether to laugh or it was playing, or if he was playing an early Halloween prank on us. Man's face was not yet visible. Sam and I asked Carl to reveal the man's face. He walked towards the body on the floor, slowly looked back at us and began to lightly kick the leaves away from the corner where the person's face would be when they kick it. He realized that the body was hollow and hard. There was neither a face nor a head. It was a fake body that someone had planted, some sort of brand, but who had placed it there? And I noticed someone was in my shop. We yelled, "We see you!" to the man who was hiding in the bushes, and he came out laughing and shouting how he saw us. But this man was older. He looked like 16 or more older, and he looked scary and distinctly tall, blinking eyes, crooked teeth, and he was breathing very hard. He said he was playing pranks on us. He tried to scare us. He planned the fake body to scare us because he had been watching us rake the leaves and found it when he wanted to play a trick on us. Sam tried to be nice, but I thought the man was so weird. I told my friends to go in, and the man was too weird that the guy was a freak. My friends eventually left soon after I went to my room and had my window open as usually. to get maybe is my room. I looked up at the window, but I could not see who was. The voice said, I did not mean to scare your area. I live in this house across the street. I like to watch you kids play with the leaves. I was too shocked to hear a stranger's voice outside my window. I kept looking at my window, and finally the familiar face of the freak from Elia came towards me. Inside, he scratched his arm under my window and pushed it up further as he tried to climb into my window. When he found that he couldn't get in, he tried to reach for me. I screamed so loud and ran into my parents' room. I told my dad about the creepy man that lived in the house across the street in the to say. My dad rushed over to the house with me. I banged at the door, but the man did not answer, so my father called the police, and when they came, he took me back to the house with the police, and this time, with the police, the man opened the front door, and it was indeed in the same man that I was too young to recognize, but the police and my father realized immediately that he had taken something, probably crystal meth, according to my father. On an October night in 2002, four girls were walking down a lonely street when they passed by an old church. Standing outside was a man dressed in a clown costume. He asked the girls if they had seen his puppy. When they said that they hadn't seen it, the man asked them to help him find the lost dog. The girls agreed to help him in the search, and the man in the clown costume led them into the old church. As soon as they went through the door, the man locked it behind him, trapping them in the old building. The girls realized that they had been tricked, but it was too late. They tried to flee, but he was too fast for them. The man tied the girls up and kept them in an old church for hours. He did unspeakable things to them. They screamed echoed of the marble house, the wooden rafters, and the ornate ceiling. After he had his fun, the poor unfortunate girl thought he would let them go, but they were wrong. He killed them one by one and then escaped into the night. People who saw the clown walking down the street, they didn't think of it because it's Halloween night and many people were wearing costumes. If only they had known that his clown costume was red because it was covered in blood. The next morning, the local priest was surprised to find the church doors were unlocked. He went inside, and in the darkness he heard a mysterious dripping sound. As he walked down the aisle, he saw a pool of blood lying on the altar. He quickly turned on the lights in the church and gasped in horror at the terrifying sight that met his eyes. The dripping sound was coming from the headless bodies of four young girls that were hanging upside down from the rafters. Their blood was dripping down from the bloody stumps of their necks and forming a pool of blood. But worse was yet to come. The girls' bodies were buried in the small cemetery behind the church. Just a few weeks later, their parents received four mysterious packages. When their parents unwrapped the packages and opened the box, they recoiled in horror. The boxes contained the severed heads of their dead daughters. Some people say that if you visit that old church on October night, you will see the ghosts of the four young girls standing on the altar. According to the legend, you can still hear their screams echoing in the darkness. To this day, the man who murdered the girls has never been found. So if a man ever comes up to you and asks you to help him find his puppy, remember this story.